Today's tutor is Jude Wainwright, who first caught our attention on Portrait Artist of the Year with a painting of German comedian Henning Wehn, which delighted the sitter.
That is brilliant.
That's what you look like.
Now, shut up.
That's exactly the reaction I was after.
I love it.
And landed her a place in the semi-final.
Jude Wainwright.
There, she continued to impress with her painting of singer-songwriter Rebecca Ferguson.
I love the expression that she's got.
I love the way in which she dealt with the glitter, the sparkles. She sort of matted them down. She did them on her own terms.
In her work, Jude captures the unique shapes and textures of her subject, which she will be demonstrating in today's masterclass on patterns.
I love painting patterns. I see patterns everywhere, whether it's patterns in your brushstrokes or patterns in the clothes you wear. I just see patterns everywhere, and I'm hoping today I can inspire you to do the same. I've got a reference picture that I'm going to be working from with a few little patterny details that I quite enjoy. I've already drawn out the image for ease and time purposes. Let's dig in, shall we? I've pre-mixed some colours here to start my painting with, because I like to start with shadows on the picture. What I'm using here is some darker shadow colours and some lighter shadow colours in a mixture of burnt sienna, raw sienna and burnt umber. With the darker tones, I'm just going to find all the bits on here that represent the same tone. For instance, the hair is quite a dark area. So I'm just going to blot these out. And if it's a bit strong, then you can always knock it back a bit with a rag. I've just finished this bit. It's a really basic layer, but it's a good preparation for you to have, which will then lead on to being able to do a lot more exciting, descriptive, patterned layers on top. Next up, what we're going to do is work on the colours underneath the lace material that I'm wearing, because it's important to get those down and in the right positions to allow you to put the fun lacy bits on top later. So I'm going to put a layer of this sort of base skin colour down now, similar to what we just did with the shadows, but with the arm. It doesn't have to be super precise. It's literally just a base. Now I'm just going to put some of the diamond print pattern on that we see in the picture, but the parts of it that'll be under the lace. So I've just mixed some ultramarine and a bit of black and a bit of brown. Again, it doesn't have to be super precise because it's under the lace, but it's important to be able to create the sort of translucent look of the lace to get the underneath right before, because it's a lot harder to do the shadowing after you add on the patterny lace detail. I really like looking for patterns in paintings and in my paintings. They provide some excitement or energy that you might not necessarily get from just a simple 2D drawing or a photograph. I think I naturally just like repetition and finding shapes and finding similarities in things and making things fit together nicely on a canvas. The Harlequin leotard has just been something that I've painted myself in for years now. And then the more I did it, the more I liked it, and I liked drawing out the diamonds and painting them, and I like the way they narrate the contours of the body without having to actually do too much to the painting. You can see on this reference picture, there are areas where the diamonds come out because they're closer, they're warped, they're coming round the body. And then up here, they start to angle out and contort. And you can tell just by looking at the diamonds, the shape of the body. It mentally tricks you into knowing what's going on there. Now I'm going to mix up some flesh tones. I like to mix a whole bunch at the same time. That way I can sort of dance about the palette and the painting without having to stop, go and mix something else and then go back to the painting. Sort of keeps the energy up, keeps the movement going. I'm just going to start by presenting my white here. And then my favorite color is crimson on the palette, so I always start with that and then make up everything from that base color. I like to identify an area where I see the same tonal color happening a lot, and I'll assign one of these to that and then just start working it on. There's quite often a reddish hue at the end of your nose, and I can see on this one, there's like a nice pinky rosy color that I'm just going to put in and accentuate. And then you can see that this sort of carries on up here, above the eyebrows. And then leading on to the cheek, there's areas where the pink is pushing through. They quite often follow the contours of the muscles on your face. I bought a book on anatomy so I could learn where your muscles and your face bones lie, and sometimes it makes it quite easy to see where things lie after that. So you can see that when I'm putting the colors on the canvas, these are creating patterns in themselves. They don't have to be rigid, repetitive patterns for them to be patterns, but they're making shapes and following contours and narrating the face. It might look a bit weird at the moment, but trust the process. I quite like to add big chunks of paint to the brush for various areas in particular that I really like painting. So for example, I'm a big fan of painting hands. I love the shapes on the hands. The knuckles and the creases have their own fun shapes that they create. And when you put like really thick, chunky daubs of paint in those areas, you can make 3D looking strokes. I've been doing quite a few different tones now, been going over the canvas, different areas. It's all getting a bit saturated at the moment, and when it gets to that point, you're best sort of moving to a new area just for a bit and giving the oils a chance to dry off a little and sink in. So what I'm gonna do now is get out my little brush and I'm gonna put some detail around the canvas. It'll help because at the moment when it's all so wild and all the strokes are everywhere and they look like they're flying off the canvas, it's good to draw everything back in again and just remember these outlines of the shapes that you're making. I'm just gonna use a dark color and a small brush, and I'm just gonna outline the eyes. I find it's good to always have the eyes as a sort of anchor. You want them to be more accurate, shall we say. And then the rest of the face can just fly off wherever you want with the patterns and shapes you're making. I'm just moving over to the cheek area now, which quite often people believe is just a flat area of the face. But once you look closer and you can see where the muscles come out and where the jaw goes in, they start to present like fantastic swirls of almost like when you see oil in a puddle and all the swirls are moving around. They kind of do the same. If you look just by the mouth, where there's this area of shadow, that sort of carries on into another area of shadow, but then it doesn't stop. You can see it goes round and up and back down again, and maybe back up again up there. And it starts to make these really cool wavy lines. What we're gonna do now is move on to the hair, which is a very fun part. We've already done the shadowing area, so I like to start with the darkest bit of the hair. If you can see on my reference picture, there's this one long swirl that goes right from the top down to the bottom. Just follow kind of where it goes on your own canvas. And then that's kind of your first building block from there, because you can just follow that pattern now. So just following the contours. It almost looks like map contours when you're doing it. And these fantastic patterns start to present themselves. As you can see, I've put a few different tones on the hair now. Some lighter ones, some darker ones. But what I want to do now is add on some ivory black. And adding that on will really push the contrast a bit more. So, and also I want to add a few little flicks of hair as detail because that's fun. So just sparingly, don't make the whole thing black after you've done all this hard work, but I'm just gonna add in tiny bits. I think we might move on to the lace now, which is my favorite bit in the whole painting. Don't be intimidated, don't worry. You know, you look at patterns like that and think, that's so complicated, I can't possibly do that. But once you get the sort of calculation done in your head and know how the pattern runs. It's so easy, I promise you, and so fulfilling. It's quite important now to clean your palette as best you can, or at least make a little clear gap, because I'm about to use just white, and that will just pick up any pigment that's left on your palette. So I want a good amount of space around where my colour's gonna be. When you're looking at the lace, there's various sort of anchor points you can go to. I quite like to go to these big circles here. If you can identify a part of the pattern like that and put that on your painting, that will then dictate where the rest of the pattern goes. What I'm going to do first is map out where all these circles are, and that will give me a good standing for doing the lace. I'm going to use a fresh brush as well, because my brushes have old paint on. I'm not going to fully do all the detail, because sometimes when it's so small, it just gets too much and then looks a mess. But I'm just going to sort of represent the kind of patterns. I quite like to freehand the lace. It adds to the fun of it for me. Feel free to draw it out first, but I don't like whatever you use to draw it out. I don't like it fighting with the white paint. I prefer just the pigment. Lace is an intimidating looking thing because it looks complicated, but honestly, it's up there with some of the easiest things to paint. Once you get the right formula in your head, it's so nice and relaxing. I would just recommend it to anyone. If you're stressed, if you're anxious, just paint some lace for a few days and you come out the other side great. I think I've identified all the circle bits now. Sometimes more will present themselves as it goes on. That's cool. I have enough here to start and know where to put my pattern. On the reference picture of the lace, there's these fun patterns going round the circles that I'm going to fill in now, because once again, you know, we've got all these anchored now. We know where it needs to go. So we can just add those next bits in. I've got all my sunny sunshine circles in now, and I think it's already looking quite fun. I'm gonna move on to, maybe like teardrops attacking the other teardrop shape. I'm gonna start with this one. This is quite a big, nice, obvious one. So I'm gonna start here on the wrist with this one that shows me exactly the whole pattern. And then I can move on to the other ones that might be a bit covered or distorted, but makes it easier once you know what it's supposed to look like. Everything's starting to come together quite nice. What I'm gonna do now is add in the folds and the creases, just as lines on the fabric, to sort of anchor everything and help it look less just like floating patterns on the picture. So you can use your thin brush, but I think I might get a thicker one because there's thicker areas that I want to achieve. And then literally just the same white. Some of it's drawn out already, but there's a few veins running through that I want to highlight more, so we'll just go over them now. I think that's the lace finish for now. I'm quite happy with that. I had a really fun time painting this lace, and it's just so much more simple than you think and makes a really nice effect once you get to the end. I'm just gonna pop in the eyes because they're looking quite hollow at the moment, but there's more patterns you can find in the eyes even. There's colours in the irises. Everyone's got unique eyes and they all make their own patterns, so you can just play around with that. I've just added a bit of lovely blue to the eyes. My eyes aren't that blue, but I wish they were. And now I'm following the iris around with a bit of a lighter blue. Just ever so lightly dabbing on this colour. And then the really fun bit is getting a thick daub of white, just pure white, and then adding the reflection to the eye. It just gives it a kick. I'm quite happy with the result of that portrait and all the different uses of patterns I've put into it, from the brush strokes to the literal fabric patterns, and how they work to make an energetic, fun, vibrant portrait that's not daunting. And I hope you can see that it's a great thing to try these different methods, that they'll bring a lot more to your work if you just give them a go.
If you'd like to find out more about these masterclasses, go to our website skyartsartistoftheyear.tv.